You stopped it. Good evening, everybody. My name is Balele Palaitile. I am a journalist, a mom, and a parenting blogger. And tonight we are going to be answering all of the questions that you have about the vaccine. I know I've had quite a few since the introduction of the vaccine. I've got an amazing panel this evening that's going to be going through this with us. And I'm just going to introduce them so that we can go straight ahead. Joining me, we've got Professor Priya Soma Pillay. She's a medical doctor and the head of obstetrics and gynecology at the Steve Biko Academic Hospital and the University of Pretoria. She's also the president of the College of Obstetricians and Gynecologists of South Africa, and she has been involved with Message for Mothers since its formation. I also have with me Nsobo Maimele. She is a pharmacist who is passionate about women and health. She is a Women Deliver Fellow. She is also the president of the she was actually the president of the Junior Public Health Association, and she was also serving on that board. I also have Crystal Duncan Williams. Crystal has an undergraduate degree in molecular and cell biology. I hope I said that right, Crystal, and a master's in public health economics. She's also a full-time mother, working and juggling as the project lead for Youth Capital, and she has been vaccinated. I'm very excited, everyone. Thank you for being here. Zobo, we're just going to start with you. Maybe you can just start telling us, what is a vaccine and how is it actually developed? Because many people have been wondering, what is it? How is it made?
Okay, so a vaccine falls under the classification of medicines. So it's basically a type of medicine that is used to prevent disease. So instead of treating, it does prevention. The way that it does this, it stimulates an immune response. So in terms of the development, there are different approaches to which you can follow when you want to develop a vaccine. So basically, as I said, that it stimulates an immune response within your body. It does this by introducing what we would call an antigen or a foreign body into your body. And then it creates a memory so that when the real bacteria or the real virus is supposed to infect you, then your body will have a memory to remember that I think I've dealt with this before. This is how I will fight it. So we've got different types of vaccines that exist in the market, different approaches. As mothers, you best know when you go for your immunization schedule, you've got the polio vaccine, you've got the tetanus vaccine, you've got different types that you would go for with your child. So you would know that when you take your child, sometimes your child becomes very sick. Typically with the rotavirus, you would know that with the rotavirus, after having that vaccine particularly, the child would be more sick than when you would take the child for another vaccine, like the diphtheria one. So that is because there are different approaches. The first approach that you would use is that you actually introduce it would be what you would call a whole virus. So that is when you would talk about a live virus, or you would take some units of the virus or some units of the bacteria and then introduce it to the person. So that is the subunit type of vaccine. Or you would use, it would be more genetics. So that is where you would use genetic manipulation or some parts of the protein or so on to be able to introduce that foreign body or that antigen within the human body so that it creates that memory. So in terms of the development, you also asked about development. There are different phases of development also with medicine. So the phases that vaccines go through is the same. It would be similar phases as what a medicine would go through before it can be approved for use by the general public. So there's phase one, where you would check if this actually, if it works, or how does it work. The prime concern about developing any medicine or any vaccine is safety. You want to make sure that it's safe. So when you do safety, it's preclinical. You would do safety in animals. You look for animals that have got similar gene structures as human beings. That would be, they like using apes, you know, like chimpanzees and so on, and also rats as well. Those are the typical ones that they would use. And then after that, once you've established the safety, you would then proceed to then check if it's effective. And then when you want to check the safety is done under healthy people. So you don't want to introduce this to a person that is sick, already having a weak immune system. Then you go through to test for efficacy. This would be like in a small number of people. If this works, then you proceed to the next phase. And this would be a bigger sample or a bigger population. If this still works, then you would apply for registration. And then a regulatory authority such as SAHPRA in South Africa, or the Food and Drug Administration in America or in Europe, you apply for a license. And depending on the data that you provided, they can also do their own studies on the side to check if the data that you would have provided as a company is really reflective of what you claim this medicine or this vaccine can do. It's only then that you would get a license. So that is what a vaccine is and how it's developed and what it's supposed to, what it would do in a human body.
Thank you so much for that. Priya, I'd like to come to you. In terms of the COVID-19 vaccine, we've had many different types. In South Africa, I know, I'm not sure, but I know that what's available, it's Pfizer and Johnson & Johnson. I'm not sure if there's any more yet, but between the Pfizer and the Johnson & Johnson, is there quite a big difference or none at all?
So the technology used for the development of the Pfizer and J&J differs. The Pfizer vaccine uses the mRNA technology, whereas the Johnson & Johnson uses the viral vector technology. In terms of the mRNA, we don't have much experience with other vaccines, but it has been tested extensively in animal studies. And the vaccine has been rolled out in Europe and in the US. And there's been thousands of women who have now received the Pfizer vaccine and the J&J vaccine. The J&J vaccine uses the viral vector. We do have experience with this vaccine, and a small part of the virus is, an inactivated part of the virus is used for the vaccine, and then enters the human body where it stimulates to produce the spike protein, which is a core component of the coronavirus. And when the body identifies the spike protein, it then able to produce antibodies that fight against the virus. So a small dose of the virus or another form of the virus is introduced, which then helps the body to make memory cells. So the two vaccines that are currently rolled out in South Africa and recommended for use in pregnancy are the J&J and the Pfizer vaccine.
Thank you so much for that. Crystal, I'm coming to you. The science sounds intimidating. You're a pregnant mother. I know you are studying health, but before you got vaccinated, what simplified the information for you? Because the science can be quite intimidating. I know even for me, I was like, what are they saying? But what made it so easy for you to just decide, you know what, I'm pregnant and I'm going to get this vaccine?
So I think my science training played into how I went about it. So I sourced a lot of information. I have friends working in the US who have colleagues who actually worked on the vaccine. So I went there first and got the very scientific papers, which, you know, if I hadn't done a science degree, I probably wouldn't understand. But then I also, because I was putting myself out there to other pregnant and breastfeeding moms and saying, if you have questions, you know, I feel passionately in life about making information accessible and engaging for people. It's what I do in my job. And so, you know, I try to simplify it as best as I can. And I think that the World Health Organization and the CDC, the Center for Disease Control in the US, have really simple guidelines. And so I was sharing those on social media, and I think that breaks it down quite simply. So I did my research. I went to very legitimate sources. I also got, you know, recommendations from my gynecologist, and putting all of that information together, I felt I was able to make an informed choice that I felt comfortable with, knowing that vaccination in pregnancy was the right choice for myself and my unborn baby.
Thank you, Crystal. Priya, I'm coming back to you. Crystal is vaccinated. She's pregnant. Currently, what are the benefits for her and her unborn baby?
For her, the risk of contracting the virus during pregnancy is significantly reduced. If she's vaccinated, she's also protecting family members and other people that she comes into contact with. So the chance of her spreading the virus to others is also reduced. In terms of the fetus and the infant once it's born, following vaccination, she will produce antibodies. This is then transferred to the fetus via the placenta in utero. So when the baby is born, the baby does have some antibodies. And if she decides to breastfeed, there will be some transfer of antibodies via the breast milk as well. So we know that infants don't produce antibodies in the first 2 months of life. So the fetus is protected and has some immunity until it's able to produce its own antibodies.
Thank you so much. Nsobo, and I guess you, Priya, can also come in on this. One other thing I wanted to find out was, in terms of breastfeeding mothers, they usually want to know, if I'm vaccinated, does the vaccine get to the baby through my milk or through my blood? How does it work for a baby who's already born and breastfeeding from their mother?
So I think that Priya touched on that a little bit in her previous statement as well, that when a mother is breastfeeding, there is a transfer of antibodies from the mother to the small child that is receiving milk. So when you, you would know that the vaccines are currently recommended for children that are 12 years old and above, and not younger than 12 years. So when a mother is breastfeeding, at least they're transferring some of the antibodies that they would have developed in their own bodies from the vaccine to the younger child. And the other benefit of it is, as you would know, that actually that is one of the prime concerns for, my colleague Priya, that pregnant women have got a weaker immune system than the general population. Same would apply to a child who is young, who has not been exposed. This is an infant that has not been exposed to so many antigens and so on in their lives, like myself as an adult. So therefore, they've got a weaker immune system because they still need to develop that immune system. So if you are a mom who is breastfeeding, you have been vaccinated, and you've got that opportunity to transfer the antibodies, actually you are protecting your child, because your child has got a weaker immune system than what you than the general public or children that are older than that child who go to kindergarten and so on. So I don't know if Priya would like to add on to that.
Yes, if you are asking about whether the vaccine itself gets transferred to the infant, if the mother is vaccinated during pregnancy, the vaccine is broken down within hours or within days. So there's no vaccine that gets, and it doesn't cross, the vaccine doesn't cross the placenta. It's the antibodies that cross the placenta. Similar in the breast milk, it's the antibodies that crosses the placenta. So we've got no evidence of the baby actually receiving any form of the vaccine at all via placenta or breast milk.
Yeah, Crystal, you wanted to come in here. You have the floor.
Yeah, I just want to say that, everything that Priya and Sova have been saying is exactly what's motivated me. So I'm a crazy person who's had 2 back-to-back pregnancies in COVID. And so my little daughter just turned 1 a month ago, and she was born 2 months prem as well. And so the fact that, by me getting the vaccine, she's not breastfeeding anymore because when I fell pregnant, my breast milk dried up. So I can't pass on any antibodies to her, unfortunately. But at least I can create kind of a bubble around her. So my husband's a psychologist and a healthcare worker, and obviously was vaccinated earlier in the year already. And so I just, it's another way for me to protect both my daughter who is born as well as the unborn baby. And this was a real big swaying factor for me, knowing, as the other panelists have said, that the likelihood of my daughter's only 1 by the time she qualifies for the vaccine, and there's enough research in children, who knows how long that's going to be. And if we can create just this little bubble around her, that was a huge incentive for me to get vaccinated.
Awesome. I love that. Priya, I'm back to you again. A lot of moms are trying, or a lot of women rather, not moms, a lot of women are trying to obviously conceive as well. And they're wondering, is the vaccine a good decision for me right now? Will it in any way impact on this process that I'm going through?
So we strongly recommend that all women planning their pregnancy get vaccinated before getting pregnant. They will develop antibodies. The antibodies, they should have some immunity or throughout the pregnancy and after the pregnancy as well. We would protect them from severe morbidity during the pregnancy. So there's several advantages of being vaccinated, and it's preferable if they do get vaccinated just prior to pregnancy.
Yeah, awesome. So we have been given a lot of advice before the vaccine. I know I was one of the people, drink this, eat that, ginger tea and all of these other things. And we've been talking a lot about antibodies. Someone is listening to this and saying, well, I'm taking my vitamins. What's much better, the vitamins or the vaccine?
Well, if you think about it, the vitamins that you are referring to is vitamins that you would like to increase, let me say, build up or strengthen your immune system, is it not? So you're talking about vitamin C and the regular things. So basically, from me, I would say personal and professional opinion is that with the vitamin C, you want to strengthen your immune system. The vaccine does the same. You also want to strengthen your immune system. So with vitamin C, it's generalized. With the COVID vaccine, it's more specific to COVID. So I would ask you a question. Would you rather go with only something that is generalized, or do you want to go with something that would be specific? I mean, it doesn't mean that if you get vaccinated, now you would stop taking your vitamins, but then I would ask you, which one would you want to go with?
Absolutely, the COVID one, because it's more directed to COVID,
Yeah.
and not the simplified one. Crystal, I want to bring you in on side effects. So I was vaccinated, and I think 24 hours after, I was down, literally in bed. I don't want to scare anyone, but it was worth it. It was worth it. I had headaches, and some fever, and just a little bit of a fever, and I developed mouth ulcers. But it went away very quickly, and it was so worth it. What kind of side effects did you experience, and were you in any way scared of the side effects affecting your fetus at all?
So just to say, because I see a few questions coming in on Facebook to me asking, how many weeks I am, so just to clarify for the audience, I was 16 weeks pregnant when I got my first jab, and I'm due for my second one on the 20th. So I'll be 22 weeks, sorry. When I get my second jab. So I got Pfizer. I would have been happy with either. That was just, what was on offer where I went. So I didn't kind of try to choose a site based on what they were offering. And my husband actually, he got J&J back in April, and he, I think, had a bit of a cold when he got the jab, which he shouldn't have done. And he was also man down for like a day. So I'd seen him get quite sick, but I knew he got over it really quickly. And then just knowing he had the protection afterwards, as you say, was worth it. For myself, got the jab, went and did grocery shopping afterwards, felt fine, first thing in the morning. And then by the afternoon, my arm was really sore. Like I really struggled to even drive. My arm was so sore. That evening, I just took Tupanado because that's the one thing that's safe to take in pregnancy. Yeah, I couldn't really sleep on that arm, but then the next day I was kind of fine. It was slightly sore, but nothing else. So obviously, I haven't had my second jab yet. I know some people get symptoms with the second and they didn't with the first. Personally, I've only had the first one, so I can only speak to that. But really nothing, just a sore arm, and the Panado did help, I think. So that was it. And I wasn't worried about anything because I had done my research. I had spoken to my doctor. I had spoken to other people who had gotten it, and I felt very comfortable. And I've had a checkup since then with my gynae, and my baby's 100%. So all good.
Awesome. I remember that sore arm. Oh, I couldn't cope. So, but what is it about the vaccine that triggers side effects? Why does it even come with side effects? Can't they just jab us and we just go dance and have fun and there's nothing wrong with us?
Yeah, hey, I think that is the dream of every pharmacist, every doctor, and every scientist, that they want to develop. That is what we call a gold drug. Want to develop this amazing drug that can treat diseases, prevent diseases, and have no side effects. But unfortunately, when you deal with medicines and when you deal with vaccines particularly, you are affecting a system. Remember that your body is a system that functions. So the moment you introduce something foreign, like a vaccine or a medicine, you're disturbing that system. And even when there's disease, it's disturbing that system. So hence the reason why you've got the pain, you've got the side effects and whatnot. So in terms of the vaccine side effects, particularly the COVID vaccine, is that if you would remember, I did explain to you that there are different approaches that you would use it's a whole virus or a whole bacteria that you introduce to create memory. So in such a case, when you introduce that antigen as a whole, or you can introduce it as a subunit in the case of the Pfizer vaccine, which is an mRNA vaccine, and then the viral vector, which is the J&J, you're still introducing an antigen into the body, and an antigen is a foreign body. So when your body recognizes that antigen, it thinks that right now we have got an enemy that has entered our system. And when there's an enemy that has entered the system, it's natural for your body to start fighting that enemy. So when it fights that enemy, that is when you get the side effects. So hence the reason why the side effects would come in the form of a headache. It would come with you sneezing. It would come with you being weak or whatever, because it would be your body that that is now all up in arms and ready for war and ready to fight that foreign body that is in there. So hence the reason why you've got the side effects. And I mean, with a vaccine and medicine development, once they do have a vaccine or a drug that is available on the market, one of the best things that they try and do, one of the targets that they try and meet, is to make it less toxic with the years. So it's not that they stop with research, they continue researching and make it less toxic. So you find that there's a particular drug that was developed I can give you an example with drugs that are used for cholesterol. If you look at the different classes, initially they were very toxic. There's one drug that was causing nightmares. No, honestly, like the patients were having nightmares. Yeah. But then right now we're in a different class of the anti-cholesterol medicines that actually the patients who are taking the medicines will tell you that I don't have any side effects. I don't experience any side effects from this drug. And yet the first class that was developed was very toxic. So that is how it works, that once the vaccine is developed and we know it's working, they haven't stopped with the research. Hence the reason why when you go, if you are involved in research and if you're involved in the type of work that we do, interacting with patients and whatnot, for example, with Priya, it's your duty as a clinician or as a healthcare worker to continuously read up, because there will be new information available, because the research continues. It doesn't stop there. So yes, we are going to have side effects right now because it's new. But then I can guarantee you that the research will continue, and most probably eventually something might come up and they would develop a vaccine that would be less reactive. Because right now the vaccine, the types of vaccines that we have available is, like I said, that the subunit and the viral vector. But then the latest one that is available is the nucleic acid, one that uses nucleic acid. So that is a new development altogether. It's like new technology that they can use. And when they use that, you find that actually, if they develop another type of vaccine that uses that technology, maybe it might even be less toxic than what we're experiencing right now.
That makes a lot of sense. Priya, I mean, for someone like me who's not pregnant, I mean, the side effects were nothing much to worry about. Crystal at least had so much more information than an ordinary person like me would have. The side effects for pregnant mothers, are they the same as the side effects that affect other people, or will they feel them worse? And what can they do when they are experiencing side effects?
So the side effects that pregnant women will experience are very much similar to what the non-pregnant women will experience. And like we said, like Crystal has said, a little bit of a pain arm. It may be red at the injection site, some body pains, headache, and fever. And we do recommend that women do use antipyretics or paracetamol to bring down that fever. We don't really like women experiencing a fever in pregnancy, so we encourage you to bring that temperature down. There have been other very rare side effects, 1 in a million or several millions, and that's the rare thrombotic events that have been reported with the J&J and AstraZeneca vaccine. It's very rare, and there's no risk factors that we can identify, or we can't predict who is going to develop these rare side effects. But if we weigh the benefits and the risks, we think there's far more benefit in taking the vaccine and reducing your risk of developing COVID and getting hospitalized in pregnancy. And the benefits far outweigh the risks. The benefits of vaccination far outweigh the risks at the moment.
Yeah. Yeah, one of the questions that gets asked a lot, especially by breastfeeding mothers, is, should I immediately breastfeed after, taking the vaccine, or should I wait? What's the science saying?
There's no need to change your breastfeeding schedule, and women can breastfeed before, after. You shouldn't change your schedule at all.
Yeah, and with Nsobo, one of the questions I wanted to ask you was, a lot of people ask, especially if you've been vaccinated, which to choose. Does it matter? Do you choose Pfizer or Johnson & Johnson? Does it matter?
Well, on a personal note, I chose. Yes, on a personal note, I chose, but I won't mention which one I chose. But
now I'm curious.
No, really. Yes, on a personal note, I did choose. But then the reason why I chose is because I checked how the different types were made and which type of technology was used to develop these vaccines. And for me, as a pharmacist, I know histories of companies. So I know, the history of, a particular drug that they may have developed, which didn't go down well, you know. Yeah, so I chose on that basis. But then in terms of pregnant women and also breastfeeding mothers, personally, I feel that you can go for either because currently when you look at the data that is available and the articles that are available, it shows that women, as indicated before, I mean, like when Crystal was saying that she did a lot of research and so on to find out whether it's good for her to take the vaccine or not. So on that basis, I would say that you can go for either because both of what we have available in South Africa has gone through product testing. There is continuous research being done. And every day there's new data showing that both of them are safe for mothers. There's no particular risk that shows that uh, mothers shouldn't take the vaccine. And the benefits at the moment, they outweigh the risks that are associated with pregnant women and also breastfeeding mothers taking the vaccine. So for that reason, I feel that there's really no cause for concern for mothers to worry whether J&J or whether Pfizer and so on. I think that maybe what a mother can do is just to read up and find out what works for them and go for whichever one they would like to go for.
Yeah. Thank you for that. Crystal, how did you go about the choosing? Was it offered to you, just the Pfizer, or did you get a chance to choose, and how did you go about it?
I wasn't given the chance to choose. A lot of my reading was about Pfizer because I was going with the Center for Disease Control, and that's in the US. And in the US, Pfizer and Moderna are the popular ones. So a lot of my reading was about Pfizer, so I felt like I knew more about that. But just maybe to break it down into simple language, how I've explained it to moms who have approached me, or expectant moms or breastfeeding moms, is to say if we think about a vaccine like a car, and the different vaccines have different cars and different drivers, right? So if you look at the J&J and the Pfizer, the car that's been used there has been used as a car for other vaccines that have been given to pregnant women. And I'll let Priya jump in with a more medical term, but this is how I simplify it for people. And so while, Pfizer is an mRNA vaccine that we maybe have been using for a little less time in the grand scheme of things, with the attenuated virus of J&J, it's a type of car that we've used for longer. Both of them have been tested, that type of car. And then the driver we've put there is a COVID driver because the vaccine is targeting COVID, right? The driver with the other cars might be different. And so that's how I've explained it to women, to say, look, it's not completely new. Yes, this combination of this driver and this car is new, but the car that's carrying the vaccine into your body is not completely new. And there are other studies in mice. I know there's the Ebola vaccine that has been given to lots of women in areas where Ebola is rife that uses a similar technology. So that's what convinced me that either one would be safe. And I would, I'd take what I could get, because the stats, especially with the Delta variant, I've been reading a lot about the increase in women who are pregnant being admitted into the ICU, both in the States and the UK, the numbers coming out of there, definitely an increase with the Delta variant. And so for me, I just thought, again, the benefits far outweigh the risks for both myself and the unborn baby. Thanks.
Yeah. Priya, I'm going to let you come in, and maybe you can also answer this, because I know a lot of pregnant women receive vaccines already during pregnancy, before the COVID one. One of the things I struggled with when I was pregnant was nobody told me what I was being given, and I didn't know. So what are some of these vaccines that they are already given to pregnant women as well?
Let me just start with the COVID vaccine. and say that both the J&J and the Pfizer vaccine have provide good protection against the variants that are currently present in South Africa and those that have been during the first and second waves. So we know that they work well and they're efficacious. In terms of the technology, the J&J uses the viral vector. That's the same technology that's used previously for the development of the Ebola vaccine. And we've got extensive experience with the Ebola vaccine in pregnancy in areas where we have an Ebola outbreak. So we've got good experience with the technology used for the J&J vaccine. In terms of the Pfizer, like I said, it's an mRNA vaccine. It's new technology that we've been using, but this vaccine has been used now extensively in the UK and the US, and they started vaccinating pregnant women in December last year already. So there's already several thousand, there's over 200,000 pregnant women who have been vaccinated in the US and UK with the Pfizer vaccine. So although women were excluded from the phase 3 vaccine trials, we do have population data, and both have been shown to be safe with minimal effects on the mother or no effects on the mother and the fetus. And we recommend that these vaccines that are offered to us be used by our pregnant mothers. In terms of other vaccines that are recommended in pregnancy and are part of the rollout, the tetanus vaccine is part of our pregnancy program. It's been used for several years now, even decades. And the key reason for the tetanus vaccine is actually to protect the neonate. And neonatal tetanus has been eradicated in the first world already before the year 2000. The incidence of neonatal tetanus is significantly lower now in our low and middle income countries. And the way it works is by vaccinating pregnant women during pregnancy, they develop a high concentration of antibodies that are then transferred over across the placenta and transferred to the fetus. The fetus then gets these antibodies and are protected from tetanus at birth. And our immunization program for infants starts at birth, but the tetanus and pertussis vaccine is only given at 6 weeks. And we know that these infants don't develop their own antibodies until about 2 months. So for these 2 months, they're quite vulnerable to both tetanus and pertussis, or whooping cough. And pertussis is one of the leading causes of infant morbidity and mortality. So the pertussis vaccine is also now recommended in the second trimester. We've been using tetanus for a long time. It's eradicated neonatal tetanus. Pertussis is also recommended, and we advise that women take that as well during pregnancy.
Thank you so much. Zoba, I wanted to ask you, in terms of the adverse side effects, I mean, I'm not sure how much research you've done, but from the most rare ones that we've had, have any of those been pregnant women at all?
Yes, we've got a
guest.
Yeah,
hello, guest
that just joined us. Sorry.
We love little guests, yeah.
Okay, so we
I
can go to Priya and then you can come back later.
There have not been any reported any reports of these rare thrombotic events in pregnant women as yet. So even though pregnancy increases one's risk for thrombosis, there hasn't been any reports of these rare thrombotic events. And in South Africa, we haven't had any either.
Yeah. You can come in, Soba, welcome back.
Sorry about that, she escaped. Yeah. Yeah, so yes, my answer is very much similar to what Priya has just said. There haven't been any special side effects that have been reported in terms of exposure, like from pregnant women or breastfeeding mothers. The rare side effects that have been of concern is the clotting factors, and also with Pfizer, there has been the myocarditis and pericarditis, which are generally have to do with the heart, and it's not particularly specified for pregnant women. So it was found in the general population, but then not for pregnant women. So there aren't any particular side effects of concern for pregnant women. One of the things that were very concerning, I mean, from the side of anti-vaxxers, was that there were stories going around about an increased chance of miscarriages when a person is vaccinated. And the studies have been conducted, and there's no evidence or data available that shows that if you are vaccinated, then you have got a risk of a miscarriage in the first trimester of pregnancy. So there's really no side effects of concern that I have come across, or that I have seen being reported. Especially at the vaccine site where I'm involved. So no.
Yeah. And Priya, for these side effects, I mean, the normal headache ones, you don't have to report it, right? So when is it time to report it? Because we've always heard the Minister of Health and, you know, the officials of government saying immediately when you have hectic side effects, report. When is it the time where you feel like, where you are like, I really now have to report this?
So we expect most of the side effects and the body pains and headaches to resolve after about 48 hours. If these symptoms persist, then I suggest you go and see your health practitioner.
Okay, so after more than that, we have some questions from the audience, from the people listening. Thank you for joining us. I think we've answered this one. Roshan asks, when is the safest time during pregnancy to go for the vaccine?
Okay, so the first recommendation from the Department of Health was that pregnant women after 14 weeks of gestation be encouraged, or it's recommended that they be vaccinated. And the first trimester, or the first 14 weeks when the fetus is most vulnerable, was excluded. And that was simply because we didn't have, it's a new virus, it's a new vaccine that has been developed, and we didn't have sufficient safety data. But now that we've got more research coming through and we've got more data, this period has now been extended to any time in pregnancy. So the recommendation from the Department of Health is that women at any gestation go and get vaccinated.
Awesome. And so, but I think you can answer that. This one, I mean, how long after the first jab, I guess this is with Pfizer, can you get a second one? Also, if you wait too long or too little, what happens? This is from Artie.
Okay. So initially, when the Pfizer vaccine was launched, they had indicated that you should get your second. It's a booster shot. Your booster shot should be after 21 days, but then that was changed soon after to 42 days. So in terms of what could happen, when you, it goes back to the process that I was explaining to you about the fact that you are trying to develop an immune response. You're trying to create memory in your body to be able to fight the COVID, the COVID virus, so that your body is able to recognize and fight it effectively. So if you are going to now start with the vaccine, you take up the first dose of the vaccine, and then you forget all about it and you don't go for your booster shot, then it means that you actually have not created the memory sufficiently, because this is what scientists sat down and researched. And they, according to the research and according to the data that is available, you are supposed to get that booster shot for you to be able to develop that required immunity for you to be protected or not to have severe side effects against COVID and develop the memory that you desire. So if you wait for too long, then it means that you're not actually going to be able to develop the memory according to the data that is available, according to the research that is available. So it's best that you follow the instructions. If you want to go in and take the vaccine, you need to go all in and not be wondering and forget and not go for your booster shot and so on.
Oh, thank you for that. I decided I'm doing Johnson & Johnson because I know I'll forget. I'm too busy. I know I'll forget. Priya, there's a question. Can I become infertile if I get the vaccine?
So there's no scientific reason and there's no scientific evidence that the vaccines affect ovarian function at all. We do have some data on this. In Israel, where a large number of the population has been vaccinated, there is some data from infertility clinics where they looked at women's ovarian function before vaccination and then after vaccination while they were going through in vitro fertilization procedures. And there was no difference in ovarian function or pregnancy outcome. So we do have some short-term data on the COVID vaccine coming from Israel and some other countries that say that it does not affect ovarian function at all.
Yeah. So I think you answered this when we started, but I'm going to ask again because it just came up from my WhatsApp. The question is, and it gets asked a lot, does the vaccines give you COVID? Do you actually get COVID when you are jabbed?
No, you don't get COVID. They don't give COVID. I will go back to what I said. I'll just repeat what I said. There's different types. There are different ways of developing a vaccine. The one way of developing a vaccine is to give actually, the way of developing a vaccine is to create an immune response. And how do you create the immune response? By introducing an antigen or a foreign body that would be like or that is related or that is the actual disease that you're trying to protect the person against. So with the COVID vaccine currently, we've got the Johnson & Johnson vaccine in South Africa. We've got Moderna that is being used elsewhere in the world. We've got the AstraZeneca vaccine. We've got Sinovac. There are many different types, and there's also the Johnson & Johnson. So in South Africa, in terms of South Africa, the Johnson & Johnson one uses a viral vector. So it's more like a carrier that it introduces. And then from there on, it creates that immune response, the sufficient immune response. And then we have got the Pfizer vaccine, which is a protein. It's a protein vaccine. So it uses it's more of an mRNA vaccine. It's more like collecting what I would refer to a subunit. It's a subunit of the actual antigen of the actual COVID that is being used to create an immune response for you to be able to have that memory, for the body to be able to have that memory, and also thereby protecting you against COVID, because then your body remembers this is how I should fight COVID when it comes, and that is how it does it. So no, you will not get COVID from having the COVID vaccine.
Yeah. Thank you for that. The people who keep telling me now you have COVID forever, I have an answer now. Priya, there's a question from Ruida. I hope I'm saying your name right, Ruida. She says, I got my first jab of Pfizer and I didn't know I was pregnant at the time. My gynae recommended the second jab in the second trimester, which will be more than 42 days after my first dose. Is this going to be an issue if I wait just a few weeks longer?
So in terms of the data that we have, we've got data for 21 days and 42 days, and it's shown that your immune response lasts a bit longer following the 42 days. We don't have data for women who have a prolonged period between vaccinations. It shouldn't really be an issue, but if we given a scientific recommendation, then the recommendation would be to go after 42 days or a few days later. The current there's no evidence of any harm in the first trimester, and therefore the recommendation that came out and that women can be vaccinated in the first trimester. So there shouldn't be any concern for taking the second jab on time or in the first trimester.
There's another question I want to bring in because I actually had the vaccine when I was on my period. So there's a question of whether it does disturb your cycle, your menstrual cycle, because I had my menstruation and I had my vaccine. And I think it actually made the side effects worse because I was already not okay. So does it affect the cycle at all?
So people react in different ways, and people's stress responses are different. For most individuals, it shouldn't affect your cycle at all. But some people just have a different stress response. So, if you suffer from severe menorrhagia or myalgia during your cycle and you take your vaccine, then it may make it a bit worse. But it physiologically, it shouldn't affect any function in your body, or it shouldn't affect your cycle at all.
Yeah. And so, I mean, a lot of people, not a lot of people, rather it's said that we are, I mean, you are doing the research, but there's this whole assertion that we might just need another jab. We might have to, those who are fully vaccinated in the next 6 months or the next whatever. And a lot of people are obviously worried. They don't want to go through the process again. Is it possible, and is that what's going on in terms of the research right now? Could there be another jab that we have to go for?
Yeah, as indicated before, that when a drug or a vaccine is already on the market, research continues. It doesn't stop. So the companies have got I would say that the moral and the public obligation to continue with research. Hence the reason why that has been on the cards, where they have discussed it, and there have been speculations from the different companies that we might need a booster shot, because remember, COVID itself is a new disease. The vaccines that are being used are new vaccines. So obviously there will be a change in guidelines, hence the reason why there's people call it flip-flopping, and the anti-vaxxers are very happy about it when it happens. But yes, it is on the cards and it might be happening, and don't be shocked when it does happen.
Yeah, thank you so much. Crystal, now that you're vaccinated and you're pregnant, I mean, what are some of the things that you can do so much better? How's life like now? You know, because I know that with pregnancy and COVID, it can be quite tricky and intense. The anxiety of going out in public and so on.
Yeah, so as I said, my first daughter was born in August last year, 8 weeks prem. So I fell pregnant kind of before we even knew what COVID was, and I had no idea what was coming. And my entire experience, I mean, my first trimester, you know, my mom, who I'm really close with and literally lives 5 minutes away from me, didn't even see my bump grow. All these ideas I had in my head of what pregnancy was going to be like, of walking through a mall and like buying cute baby clothes and having my colleagues like see my bump and rub my belly and all these things that I envisioned for myself as my pregnancy. None of that came to fruition. I didn't get a baby shower. My mom did a small little drive-through, like drive-by just for family. My friends didn't even get to throw me one. So all of these things that I wanted to do with my first pregnancy, I didn't get to do. And then on top of that, my daughter was born 8 weeks early, no warning, just, yeah, I just went into labor. And so that was very scary. And so that was having her in the ICU for a month, being terrified of getting sick myself, because then I wouldn't be able to see my daughter at all. And already I was only getting to see her for a few hours a day. And there was lots of strict regulations because of COVID. So all that anxiety, you know, knowing that there's a way to protect myself now. So I've only gotten one jab, so I'm still being super careful. Because, you know, one jab only gives you minimal protection. So I'm still being super careful, but I'm counting down the days. I get my second jab on the 20th of September, and then I'm going to wait those 2 weeks, and then I'm going to feel a little bit more safe, you know, safe to go and like meet a friend for coffee outside somewhere, or, you know, just be outside a bit more and not feel so scared all the time, and like feeling like I have to limit contact, or, you know, have a little play date with my daughter and a friend with a kid of the same age. So I'm dreaming about all of these things and feeling safe to actually going to a shopping mall and going to buy some baby things and all these things that I didn't get to do the last time. And also knowing that I had a preterm labor, obviously my risk of having another one is increased, even though there was no real reason the first time. And so knowing that if this baby should come early, I can know that I'm protected from getting COVID, and that won't, you know, I know I might still get it, but I have this extra level of protection. So my chances of getting it are much lower. And so, you know, I'll be able to see my baby and go into the NICU, and all of these things are some of the things that run through my head. And then also, as I said, you know, protecting my little toddler just gives me such peace of mind. So yeah, my husband's fully vaccinated. The grannies that look after are all fully vaccinated. So I'm the last one on the list, and I can't wait for that sweet, sweet feeling of relief.
Oh, you ended it so well. I love that so much. Thank you so much. I want to thank you guys for this. We went through quite a lot of questions, and I had quite a lot of information. And thank you to the audience for joining us. I hope your questions were answered. I do know that you can still ask your questions in the comments, and we will try to answer them as much as we can. Again, thank you guys for coming on and sharing your knowledge. I learned quite a lot. I'd also like to thank Side by Side for hosting us on their platform, and also Embrace, the movement for mothers that produced this important event. And this conversation was brought to you guys by Message for Mothers, a mother supporting coalition established by Embrace, the Perinatal Mental Health Project, Grow Great, and Side by Side. If you want to know more about the conversation we just had, you must go to www.messagesformothers.co.za. If you'd like to get information on COVID vaccines and support resources as we go through this pandemic, please remember to keep yourself safe, wear your mask, social distance, sanitize, wash your hands regularly as we continue, you know, trying to beat this pandemic. And I believe that we will. Thank you guys so much, and good night, everybody.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Thank